20-pound barrel up there that's set on fire. He's raising it.
Oh, sorry. You know, there's coats in that coat right
I was
now.
about to say, I'm gonna get
Put on a big coat, put it on, put it on
Okay, yeah.
Cool. So, do you think it's not
anything that bites arachnids? So I was curious.
He's gonna go drive, you should take a test with Larry, so he can drive the bus.
So you can drive the bus. Why is he learning to drive the bus?
He's gonna take the youth on Sunday when we go to practice.
Well, he might be getting an ask. Health fair.
What? What?
We're going to be picking up kids from different elementary schools, offering to. We're having a health fair January 6th here, where we're going to provide free flu, pneumonia, and child age appropriate vaccines. Where they're also going to get an eye exam, and everyone is invited to get blood. So we're doing that, and so we're offering schools in like low-income areas if they need a ride, they can come get a ride from there.
But the
Can
kids
anybody
are.
get an eye exam?
Sure. I mean, probably.
I'm needing.
No, the kids cannot get
Okay.
one.
I haven't scheduled.
Anyone can get the shots, I know, for sure.
No, you have to be a certain age and weight to get blood.
I need.
Well, yeah, to get blood. Yeah, but to get the vaccines, anyone can get their flu and pneumonia
I think
vaccine.
if you're 16 or 15, 16 or 17, you can still get blood, but you have to have a parent consent.
Right.
Is that Saturday?
Yes, it's from 9 to noon.
This Saturday?
No, January 6th.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Gosh, I mean, they'll be asking days, right?
That's a whole different year.
yeah, different year. It's next year. Just don't worry about it.
Like Saturday, what Saturday? You can do it.
So,
4 Saturdays.
since I'm being recorded, I feel like we should open in prayer. So, let us pray. Gracious God, I thank you for this group who gathers so faithfully on Wednesday to dive into your word and to learn about how that word should change our hearts and change the way we live our lives and to change our world around us. Be with us during this Advent time as we prepare to welcome your Son into our lives. In his name we pray. Amen. So, how did last week go?
It was horrible. I mean, whoever covered for you,
Just so bad?
they did.
He was terrible.
So,
Just thinking that, I was like, what?
I
was like
sent
lost. I was like, what?
I sent Don like curriculum so he wouldn't have to do it, and it wasn't pulling up for him at first. And so he emailed me, he's like, did you not send me curriculum? Like, I got that while I was on the plane. I was like, no, I sent you the curriculum. And he just thought I was like playing a joke. And then eventually it came up.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
I had this update and it all came on.
Yeah. The day of.
No, well, yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
I didn't
so-
wait too long.
I'm sorry that I made you sweat a little.
No, it's all right.
But, are there any thoughts that you all want to share? Catch me up. Any great insights?
It was about 7 weeks ago, it seems like.
So,
I was
yeah.
about to say, I was listening to that. I can't remember.
I had my favorite verse, Micah 6:8.
Yeah.
That's right, you weren't here.
I know.
You were
It was a real bummer.
What does the Lord
commenting
require
on.
of you?
What?
What does the Lord require of you?
You're right. But to do
Do
justice
justice.
To love kindness, to walk humbly with
to God.
Good
That's right.
job.
It's a song.
She came. Oh,
It is a song.
That's how I.
It's also in the
I
Bible.
feel inadequate now.
I was at
Remember last week?
it's because of the song. I was at lunch today with my mom, and there were two people who were like really deeply talking about theology, like deeper than we're gonna get. Like they were just like really into it.
At your table? Or
No,
were you,
next to
like,
us.
listening?
But
Oh,
I was
okay.
definitely listening. I was like, oh, what are you talking about? And they were arguing over their favorite verses. But one of them was Micah 6:8. The other one quoted something from the Beatitudes, which are both very good places to quote from. But it's really interesting hearing, like, based on what their favorite verse was, how that extended to the rest of their faith, and how that was kind of like the jumping off point on how they understood everything else. But I really want to be like, me too.
You're invited to Friday night.
Yeah, we talked about that last week. Come back. We're talking about Micah. And then, so while I was in Pennsylvania, for all that, my wife's grandmother passed away, and so we got to see all this extended family that we hadn't seen in a long time. And one of the cousins has like a 2-month-old baby named Micah because of Micah 6:8. I was like, okay, this is a little overkill. Like, I get it.
There's lots of fun.
Yeah, right. Like, okay, Micah 6:8. It's my favorite book, but like, name your child after it. Come on. But it was very nice. It was good to see family, and I'm thankful for Dawn to be able to cover and everything. We are almost done with Micah. We're saving the last 3 verses for post-Christmas. Do you remember what date that was? I think it's like the 2nd or 3rd Wednesday that we come back in January.
I don't think we'll meet the first Wednesday, so it must be the second.
2nd Wednesday.
And
And so we're going to save the final 3 verses as kind of like a transition into the next Bible study. And I think Sam's going to be teaching that one. Did we decide on it at staff meeting?
what did you decide, Job?
Yeah, I think it was Job.
Yeah, I think he's
Yeah.
gonna go with Job.
So he's going to go with Job, kind of why do bad things happen, good people kind of discussion. But we're going to kick it off from the last 3 verses of Micah to jump into Job. And so that's going to be exciting. So today we're pretty much wrapping up Micah. So does someone want to read the first, who wants to read verse 9? That's going to be the first jumping off point.
The voice of the Lord cries to the city. It is sound wisdom to fear your name. Hear, O tribe and assembly of the city. Can I forget the treasures of wickedness in the house of the wicked, and scant measure that is accursed? Can I tolerate wicked scales and a bag of dishonest weights? Your wealthy are full of violence. Your inhabitants speak lies, with tongues of deceit in their mouths. Therefore I have begun to strike you down, making you desolate because of your sins. You shall eat but not be satisfied. There shall be gnawing of hunger within you. You shall put away but not save, and what you save I will hand over to the sword. You shall sow but not reap. You shall tread olives but not anoint yourselves with oil. You shall tread grapes but not drink wine. For you have kept the statutes of Omri, and with all the works of the house of Ahab you have followed their counsels. Therefore I will also make you a desolation, and your inhabitants an object of hissing, so you shall bear the scorn of my people.
Micah's in a real good mood. Real excited. So the first line, it is sound wisdom to fear your name. Sound wisdom to fear God's name. Does that sound
Okay.
Does that sound like anyone's?
I thought he was saying it was sound wisdom for us to hear God saying our name. Just
That's
because of the way
interesting.
the punctuation is, the voice of the Lord cries to the city, it is sound wisdom to fear your name, and your name is not capitalized.
Okay. Any other ways?
So is that like when your mother calls you by your name?
That's
could be.
that's how I was interpreting it. Yep, that's how I thought he was saying that if God is calling your name, then it's because you've been naughty.
You done messed up. God don't talk to you unless you've been bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Does anyone read it the other way? I originally read it as it's sound wisdom to fear God's name.
That's what I got.
That's how you read it?
But then, yeah, like you said,
But
it's
he's
interesting
talking
that
to
there's not
people.
a capital. Or,
And
but then
I
it
he's
says,
talking
yeah,
to them, not
listen,
to God. So
the Lord is calling to the city, and to fear your name is wisdom.
That's how you're assessed.
Yeah, it's just.
I still think that it's because he's not talking to God, he's talking to the city.
Well, we can talk about it both ways. Who knows what Micah was thinking? So, should we fear if God says your name?
You should listen up.
You should listen up, yeah?
At least, yeah.
At least pay attention.
Now,
To-
here,
I
the
mean,
word
listening
fear is
doesn't
always
mean
kind of used in different ways in
Yeah.
different parts of the Bible. too.
Right. Right. And I think there's a strong connection between fear and a respect
Yeah.
kind of thing.
I think most people have been afraid
That's
when
what
God
you're saying,
talks to them,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Like in
Reverence.
stories.
Yeah, right, throughout the Bible. Not a lot of people are like, God says your name, like, yes. I think this time, usually it's
I've
like,
been chosen.
alright, so can anyone think of any other stories in the Bible where someone's got spoken and what their reactions have been?
Like Samuel.
Moses was already.
Zechariah and Elizabeth.
Okay.
Jonah.
Adam and Eve at the very beginning. Where are you? Are there any good moments
trembling and fear of like what we would think of like fear, like being scared, like of what's gonna happen, like trembling. Like she was saying, fear is also translated as awe. Like
Okay.
when you're, you know what I mean? Like you could say that like if you meet a celebrity or something, you're kind of fearful, you're kind of nervous, but
You get the same kind of biological response.
yeah, you tremble, you're in awe of what you're seeing or
Okay.
hearing.
I think even like the visitation with Mary.
That's what I
It was
started.
an angel.
Yeah, it's an
Yeah.
angel.
That you recognize that was really
And even with Elizabeth,
God being,
Yeah.
I think that was a
represented in that
good.
message.
Yeah.
so,
And Elizabeth, yeah.
yeah.
And what was it, wasn't it Samuel, God calling Samuel at night? Getting a story mixed up?
And he's the one who like dreamed it or at
Yes,
night,
yes.
and then he went, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so can we think of are there any times in the Bible, and I'm drawing a blank, where someone's just like jazzed? Like there's not even any like awe
Not
or
the first
respect.
time, but like after a while, Moses isn't like.
Moses gets comfortable.
He gets comfortable, right? And then there are some of the prophets like even challenge God after a while, right? If
After a while,
I find 10 men, will you take the city down, right?
Yeah.
Like, but not the first meeting. No, I mean
Yeah.
I don't know anyone that
Confident.
reckless.
Or reckless.
I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
gonna say reckless. Either one.
Yeah.
Like, well, if I hadn't been smited by now, like I must be doing something.
Yeah.
I must-
And I think there's some inclinations in some branches of Christianity where it's like, oh, I just want God to speak to me. Like, God, talk to me. Let me hear your voice. God, tell me what you want for my life. And I mean, I can think of like Christian, like contemporary Christian music. Just like, speak to me. What a beautiful name. But if you read this, it's like, you better be careful wanting to talk to the creator of the cosmos. And so, yeah, so it's good to know that fear carries that connotation of respect or awe. Because I think some people need to have a healthy fear of God, probably. But God isn't something or someone to be feared. Isn't a boogeyman, a villain, or something in a horror movie. But there is definitely so I don't know, I think sometimes, if you're parents, so you can speak to that, you kind of want your kids to have a healthy fear. Right? Or no?
No.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I don't.
You don't? Okay.
I don't want them to fear me. I want them to respect me. I want them to do I want them to obey me because they love me, not because they are scared.
What?
I don't think that they're me. I don't want them to fear me at
I
all.
want them to fear the consequences that I will put down.
And I don't
That
even
you will
want them
rain
to fear the
down.
Yeah.
consequences.
Okay.
Well, I fear my consequences. I fear a ticket. I just paid one. I'm going to fear that for the rest of my life.
When they described, in the Bible, when it described God as a king, I think that was a good, I mean, it's not really good for us because we don't have a king.
Right.
But for most people, they understand that like, you don't just walk up to the king and start asking for stuff.
Yeah.
You don't just like, there are certain things you do for the king, like you bow or whatever
Like
the
in
rules
faith,
are.
Respect.
And so that I think that's a good descriptor of how to respect God.
Well, I wonder if the fear analogy ended up not being that helpful. Because you read that throughout the Old Testament, fear God, fear God, fear God. And so maybe it's a change of tactic when Jesus comes. So there's probably less fear, I think, when you read the Gospels. And so maybe it's saying like, all right, well, if you're not responding to this, well, maybe this will be a better response. Yeah. So is there anyone who does want like a little bit of fear for your kids to have like
Oh yeah.
a little bit? Okay.
I just remember from our child development,
That's why I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I want to love
It's all right.
Kind
I'm
of
good at being
the
different.
movement from irrational fear
You can accept you
to
often.
logical fear.
Yeah.
You know, that's a maturation thing for children. So it's okay for them to be afraid of something because that's going to guide their behavior right at that time. Because
Right.
they can't weigh
Yeah.
everything like hopefully they will as they
Yeah.
mature. So, I mean, I think that still applies to all of us
Yeah.
too. There are times that we're still only going to respond to the illogical
Yeah. Yeah.
aspect of fear.
When
Yeah,
I was
healthy fear.
Yeah.
when I was in like my sophomore year of college is when I first started meeting with Sam to prepare myself. He was my mentor for ministry, and we were talking about the different approaches to pastoring, and I was like complaining about how people use fear-based preaching, I don't know how anyone can listen to that or how they can buy it or whatever. And I remember him, distinctly remember him telling me about how, for some people, that's how they relate. And if you look at, I have a friend who's the campus minister at Langston. He does Kairos ministry, which is prison ministry. And he goes, the way you preach in prison is different than how you preach from the pulpit in your church. Just because people respond differently to that. And Sam told me something similar, like people who've had a lot of trouble in their life. There are some people who do like to have, I've never felt love before, and that's important. But other people really respond to the hard love kind of thing. Kind of like a football coach. You know, I remember in 8th grade, our football coach cussed so much at a halftime once we started counting because it was so comical. But for him, that is how he, inspired people, and it worked for a lot of us because he cussed us enough that we didn't want to be cussed at anymore, and so we played better. And so it's a balance between, you don't want to be abusive, you don't want to have a relationship based on fear, but also there are consequences. I think Micah has more than adequately outlined consequences for not following God, and it's exile and destruction, and I'm going to raise your city, and it's just going to be fertile land, and we're just going to start all over. And I think that's okay.
And along the line of what you're talking about on the fear stuff, I noticed when I went to the Penn Avenue services of all the ministers out, worshiping, and I asked them, different ones of them, why they liked that kind of preaching. And they would tell me that because if you had my experience of drinking and drug use, you figure out if you weren't scared out of it, you would be dead now. So that's where they thought it was really helpful to them, because they thought they would have all died.
Yeah.
And then I've been scared out of doing it by the faith. So
Yeah. Well, and maybe that's what the Israelites needed to hear from Micah. Done everything else. So dang it, I'm just going to lay it down. Okay, so now I want to break into groups. So y'all can be a group. Maybe y'all will go over there and y'all be a group. I want you to reread 9 through 16, the rest of chapter 6. And I want you to reread it from a particular perspective. So I want you all to read it as if you are the have-nots of society. And read and see how this would sound to you. And I want you all to be the haves. And see how you would respond to that. The top section.
Oh, again, the top section.
The top section again.
I have not.
I know, so
Like, we're the non-elite in society.
Yeah.
okay, so
I need a.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so I mean, to me, the first thing, I see is,
Tell them to have over there. Come on over there, have a.
Yeah, that's right.
first of all, the last
Have-nots is really a hard concept that I think for us in modern society.
So I
We
guess
don't have classes,
the-
at least
the
in
ones with the ill done
Western
treasure.
society as much as we used to. Like, it's not determined by group as it used to be. Like, we usually, I think that's the thing is. We have, we don't label, it's not like instantly labeled and you can move fluidly throughout your life back and forth.
All the wealth and
I see it very much as the have-nots, first of all, screw them.
Well,
And,
yeah.
Good, let's see them,
But no,
let's see their houses, let's see their houses start to the ground, let's see them become have-nots.
Are the haves the wealthy?
It'll equal
the-
everything
Yeah,
out.
let's see them beaten down.
Yeah,
People who have
powerful,
influence
yeah.
and power and.
We have a little extra in the bank account.
We'll all be equal in our misery.
Yeah, I think
Right.
It's a difficult
Right,
concept.
and then it'll be,
Have gotten who have gotten.
we can all start at 0
Y'all can
And-
decide.
and fair.
You may be the most honest one of the dishonest, but however you want, however you came about your money, you have it.
It'll,
Being born into status or whatever.
Well, what also think of it, like, if this is the way they live, right? Like, they're never full. Even though they have like a little piece of bread, they never get enough nourishment. So they're kind of like, well, now you'll live like the rest of us.
yeah.
You know what I mean? You're getting your just dessert.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, but that's a pretty good cynical lens for a lot of poor people.
Yeah, so though I don't think my students would have any happier if I didn't have anything.
You have a very
You
positive
maybe
outlook
like
on
the man.
humans.
You know how this is so general.
Maybe there
Get
were
lumped in with the people who have the
And kids in general,
Even
like,
if
not
it's
just,
comfortable
they're
with
not
what you
taking
have,
after a
you don't
whole lot of my
make that
clients,
discretion.
not usually.
That's what I was gonna say, most of the time, some people.
They would have
make it
still
if there's
felt
no
empathy
other
towards
person
the
else
other.
going.
In fact, I think that they had that,
Yeah.
would have been even more empathetic. They would have had more sympathy for people who were losing everything because they knew they were
Maybe
what was
as
coming to them.
individuals.
They would have said,
but not as a gang.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I'm saying, if you look at one person that loses everything, yes,
Mhm.
You just don't see that.
as humans, we typically feel empathy there. But if you're thinking of them as a group, faceless group,
I don't have any.
it's not the same.
History has over and over again proven that the
I
group,
guess you could
the have-nots
have.
group, feel absolutely zero sympathy. Look at all the slave wars of the Roman Empire. I was just listening to it on a podcast. Those slaves,
aren't trying to
Was
take
it-
them away, they're trying to
they burned
It is
to the
encouraging
ground and
now.
raped and killed children. Like, they're
Yeah.
free for themselves. They were already free and then they went back to the city and like, I'm just saying, like, history just proves, like, over and over again.
It could be both ways.
I mean, you've got a very positive outlook on humanity. I do not. Like, I like, if I was in the dirt and someone was kicking me in the face over and over again, and then they were in the dirt next to me, the first thing I would do would be like, ha, stick your face in it now. I'm just telling you, I'm not a nice person like that. Like,
evident help for that.
Safety.
In my, I think that
The wife's just in the center.
that's a awfully harsh to think that because they don't have anything.
John.
I still think that's.
But got your shoulder and you over here.
Oh, yeah, the forward,
That
if you
depends
shall
on
even not be
Yeah, also,
satisfied.
oppressed they
If
are.
you're the
Yeah.
head, you probably
because it would be
think
different
that
if
you
it was
can
like
always
a just
afford to keep eating
noble
until
who
you are
was really
satisfied.
nice and kind and gave freely and tried to help people, and then he lost everything and be like, oh,
About
dude,
it.
well, that's not.
The
But
French
if you just
Revolution.
Free chili.
Yeah,
All
exactly.
those that not use
That
it.
was-
It's
Yeah,
like-
they were upset.
Yeah, but they were kicked
I've
in the
never
face
known
over and over again.
Right.
Not with everybody.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
with
That's
the,
the
with the
thing, as a
with the
group.
haves,
They
yeah,
killed
as a group.
everybody.
It was
But
an
not even just
institutional
that.
group.
Because even with the Russian Revolution,
Okay.
they were going
I think we're gonna come back together.
They only killed off people they thought who had
There we
power, not
go.
everyone's friends.
We had a spirited discussion.
Sure did.
Talking about.
We don't know what
how
they
they had it.
Well, we were like, came up with like
Just like a hat.
5 or 6 revolutions.
Just complaining
Got a
about
history
being
lesson
old.
over here. Just complaining. How could we?
So, what are some of the violations? Some of the things that Mike is upset about in this little section?
The wealthy are full of violence.
Wealthy, specifically.
Yes.
Or rich men are violent.
Then other folks.
Full of violence.
Dishonest.
Yeah, speak lies.
They cheated their.
Dishonest what, though?
It says just her people are
It just
liars.
says they speak lies.
Yeah.
And then up top it says dishonest weights.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Oh,
the
yeah.
wicked scales.
The wicked scales. and
This
the-
Like the
Scales
scales
of
of
false
justice or the scales of the economy are off.
Or maybe
right?
they're just cheating.
Well,
They're cheating.
yeah, because if you bring me 5 pounds of,
Bag of dishonest weight.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're
So those
bringing
weights
me
could be any number of things.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, if
Justice,
you're bringing
economy.
me 5 pounds of grain, and I'm like, oh, no, the scale says you only brought me
Throw a sword
Three.
on it.
Yeah, it's got- it's a little-
Yeah.
A little weighed down on one side, okay? Anything else? What's that?
Tons of deceit in your mouth, yeah, it's not a lie.
So-
ill-gotten treasure, yeah.
Ill-gotten treasure. So this is pretty, Mike is pretty, specific in what area of life causes ruin. Which I think just serves as a cautionary tale to all of us of what wealth can do, what the wanting to get the acquisition of wealth, you know.
I get the feeling that Micah might not have been very wealthy.
Probably didn't have a lot of,
Yeah, I don't think he was.
probably didn't. Probably in this camp.
Yeah, I would think so.
Probably not one of y'all. Probably one of y'all. Yeah.
Just one of us.
Yeah. And I don't think, and I'm not quite sure he's saying, because for, in a global perspective, but even in a local perspective, we in this room are on this side. And so hopefully, we don't have dishonest weights. So maybe this is personal
That's
check
what
for
we were
you all.
talking about, like
But-
somebody else.
But it should be cause to self-reflection. Hopefully we can say, well, we're not doing this. But I think for some it would say, oh, that would hurt. I was doing some research for my sermon on Sunday, and how the hourly wage between a low factory worker versus CEO, how the CEO pay has like ballooned, and the factory worker has not kept up with the same pace, which I think Micah might be upset about the wicked scales part of that. So, how did you all read it as the haves, as the people that Micah is kind of casting down on?
How did you rich people read it?
Yeah.
Well,
How did you wicked and dishonest people?
Yeah, the right way, the correct way for white people.
Correct, maybe. Start there.
What
we
did you
would
think
look at
when you were
ourselves
counting
as,
your
well,
money?
he's not really speaking to us or to me.
But someone
he's
else.
speaking
Those other guys that
to
all
my
those,
neighbors down
Ah.
the street.
I've seen those guys that have
So-
the
Yeah,
design
so
scales.
you don't
That's not me.
introspect.
I made
Dodge.
my money
Did you get
legitimately.
a little bit?
No
Okay.
introspection, yeah.
Yeah, we would differentiate ourselves from
Yeah.
even ones like us.
I may have made some good, shrewd business decisions, but I'm not.
But I'm not dishonest.
Yeah, right. I never weighed down a bag.
Right.
I just bought at the right time. Okay. What about the have-nots?
Well, we had a little different.
Yeah,
We,
we were all over the map.
well, no, they all agreed except for me.
Okay.
No, I know, that's true to say that.
They heard me, they listened to me.
Sure.
They just,
Yeah, the haves were like, no, we're all good. Good? Okay. Everyone, deflect.
Perhaps
We,
like, not I.
we saw us as being,
Yeah.
we kept teetering back and forth on whether if you're beat upon, you have empathy, or if you're beat upon and brutalized, you beat upon and brutalize others. We saw both ways, where you could go either extreme.
Yeah, she was saying that like the have-nots might have empathy or would have empathy for those.
Because they understand.
Because they understand what it feels like to be the
Yeah.
poor.
Which you would ideally hope.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
we gave examples from history in which that didn't happen.
Of
Yeah.
maybe more. Okay.
so where you go brutalize and so you brutalize.
Yeah.
Right, okay. But overall, would you say that for y'all, this section was good news? You're like,
She
I'm.
said
no,
no.
I said
We-
no.
She
You
said
know,
no. Yes.
Most of us thought,
That we
yeah,
like,
yeah, burn
good
the
news.
city because we're mad.
Okay.
That's what
But
we
she
said.
was
because
saying no.
just because I'm mad
Yeah.
doesn't mean that I want you to suffer too.
We were just
Right.
saying,
So I
who
think
who cares, because we don't have that far to go.
We were
Right.
It doesn't,
Let's
start.
I'm already not drinking wine, so.
Serious.
We were
No, I was like
We don't care.
legitimately, I'd be laughing in their
Yeah.
face when they were sitting next to me. And
We were perfect, but we understood the human condition.
Okay. And for you all, bad news?
It doesn't respond.
Yeah.
Bad news for some.
Yeah.
We're still in good shape.
Okay.
We did say that it would probably be a little more terrifying to the haves to like have the things like a gnawing hunger, like worry about like, if you didn't, if you're like, oh my gosh, I've
Yeah.
never been hungry before. But then also you're like, I've never been hungry before, I'm okay. Like,
Yeah.
I've got enough that I'll be able to.
Yeah, it says, I've saved up, and it says, was it you save, but you store, but you can't save anything?
then it will be put to the sword, meaning someone's gonna take it.
So on the 24th in the morning, the scripture passage is Mary's Magnificat, where she says, the rich will be brought down and the poor will be lifted. And so imagine if you had a mixed congregation of really poor people and really wealthy people sitting there. Some people would be like, yes, the poor will be lifted up, and everyone's like, oh, the rich will be brought down. What does that mean?
Like
And
I'm
so-
just gonna sit here quietly.
Yeah, I'm just gonna just write my tithe check a little bigger this week.
I would think that, and we were chatting about it right before we broke, but the haves, I'm sure, have a perception that, well, I am righteous. I've been blessed. Look at all that I have. I'm already on the good path. I don't know what's wrong with the rest of y'all, but I'm in good shape.
Well,
I'm
and-
right. I'm right with
Obviously
God.
doing something.
And that's the
right.
part where he says, you have kept the statutes of Omri and all the works of the house of Ahab. Who that was, I think it was Omri. Omri was one of the kings that grew the nation to its biggest.
Yeah.
Israel was its greatest.
Totally good team.
And then Ahab was the husband of Jezebel. Jezebel, we all know the connotation of Jezebel. Jezebel's looked very poorly upon in the Bible. And so it's saying, you follow the statutes of Omri, and they're saying, well, yeah, look, it made us big, made us great. But Micah's still saying, but you got that way probably by unethical means. And so that's what he's highlighting. Cool.
But he doesn't necessarily separate the rich and the poor, and I mean, and it's just like, this whole nation's going down. And if the
Right.
rich goes down, the poor are going down too.
Exactly, yeah. And that's where he brings in the, I back a few chapters ago, the remnant.
Yeah.
There will be some, but yeah, it's the poor will suffer based on the choices of the wealthy. I'm sorry, but you're all Israelites. You're all the people of Israel, which should make the haves feel even worse. Okay, fine, I'll take my due justice, but the fact that I'm bringing everyone else with me should be added emphasis to not act that way. So, just because of time, I want to skip this next section, except for verse 5. Put no trust in a friend, have no confidence in a loved one, guard the doors of your mouth from her who lies in your embrace. For the son treats the father with contempt, the daughter rises up against her mother, the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, your enemies are members of your own household.
Whoa.
Anyone read that at your wedding?
No.
I think I'm going to start
Maybe
doing
the day
that.
after the election.
Yeah, yeah.
That was, yeah, turmoil.
I think I'm gonna start doing that at all wedding rehearsals, just to like freak out the family. Like tell the like bride and groom that like, all right, we're just gonna say that this is the verse, and like read it in front and see how the parents react.
But it's a song.
Yeah, that's probably just gonna cause more trouble.
And then the last one, that's what you need to say.
Which one?
Like the very last line, after you say all the members of your household. But as for me.
As for me, I
Rest of y'all
will
real
look
fine.
to the Lord.
Yeah.
I will wait for the God of my salvation. My God will hear me. And that's a good point to jump off. So, can someone read this next small section right here?
Do not rejoice over me, O my enemy. When I fall, I shall rise. When I sit in the darkness, the Lord will be the light to me. I must bear the indignation of the Lord, because I have sinned against him, until he takes my side and executes judgment for me. He will bring me out of the light. I shall see his vindication. Then my enemy will see, and shame will cover her who has said to me, where is the Lord your God? My eyes will see her downfall. Now she will be trodden down like the mire of the streets.
So Micah got dumped. That's what it sounds like. So, are there any thoughts, first of all, about Micah's little righteous indignation?
I thought it kind of sounded like in Jonah when he's in the whale.
Okay.
And he's like, all right, I'm down, but God's here.
Yeah.
It's still with me.
Yeah. I think there's a nice like balance of humility.
Yeah.
To say, I've sinned, I'm gonna get mine. I understand that. But then there's a little bit of confidence. Some might say arrogance. That I'll be forgiven at the end. But my enemies are going to be trodden down the street like the mire of the street.
He seems a little self-righteous. And
A little, yeah? You
I'm
think?
gonna say full of himself.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah. I
It's
think,
like, I'm going to take the licks, I'm going to keep on ticking.
yeah. But it'll get passed, but not going to pass for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think to be a prophet, you have to be a little self-righteous. To say that you're speaking for God. Yeah.
That you're separating yourself from
Yeah.
the them.
Like you're kind of keeping yourself because like I sin too. I am a humble sinner, but I'll be found innocent, or judgment will easily pass me, but not you won't.
It kind of reminds me of the pattern of a lot of the Psalms too, that start out with a real bleak,
Yeah.
downtrodden view. And
Yeah.
then the cycle
Yeah. Well-
resolves itself.
And Mike is getting that way. He's slowly getting that uptick. And I'll read the last few verses. We're not going to talk about them, but I'll read them as our closing prayer. And it ends with that up, on the upswing. Does anyone here watch Game of Thrones? Anyone?
Not until 2 years from now.
Religiously.
Well, so when Cersei gets paraded down the street with shame, that's what I think of Now she will be trodden down like
I
the
was
lion
thinking
of
the
the
same,
street.
in the books it's really horrible.
Shame.
Ooh, man.
Shame. Yeah, that's how I read it. Okay. So the last little section on the back of the page. Before we read it, try not to read ahead. So this in the Bible, and like if you have like a subsection on the top or whatever, it is titled A Prophecy of Restoration. Now if you were thinking, okay, I'm about to read a prophecy of restoration, what do you think it would mean?
Well, there has to be destruction first.
Okay, destruction first.
It's like, oh, okay,
And then-
this is the path,
I think grace.
yeah, the path forward, this is how I'm gonna get out of this.
How you're gonna build
Or
it
get
back,
through
how
it.
great
And you
it's
have to
gonna be.
confess. You have to confess for the restoration.
Confession.
Yeah.
Confession leads to redemption, maybe?
Yeah.
Anything else?
Story of healing.
Healing. Any other thoughts? Restoration.
Make new.
To make new?
And I guess you covered this in redemption, but there's forgiveness.
Forgiveness. That is important. Christianity likes forgiveness. Okay, so get back into your groups, and I want you to read this, and then see if it matches to any of these points.
So I guess nobody's a half or a half nut anymore.
Nope, we're all even. Even playing. We've all been destroyed.
So we get to restore.
Yeah.
Nobody can see.
Thank you. About how the buttons on the radio work.
Did you try to open that back door? It's confusing. You have to kind of like.
One way or the other, yeah.
So 14 is where kind of like a prayer goes. It's like a start to a prayer.
Yeah. Yeah, by putting it in paragraph form, you lose a little bit of that. But you save a lot of paper, so. You're playing it, you know.
Still doesn't sound great.
It took me a while to
It
make,
does for the people you're talking to, but not for anybody else. Because they're not
Earth
you
will
anymore,
still
it's
be
not.
desolate.
Except for you. You get to live in a garden land, such as Shannon Village.
okay,
Well,
people
that's-
will
but
come
that's
to
okay.
you from Assyria to Egypt.
Yeah, but there's nothing.
Egypt,
That's
so it's talking about
It goes
immigrants.
back to fear.
Yeah.
But the earth will be
Come out of my-
desolate
I've come out of my
because of its
fortress, I've
inhabitants, meaning
survived
the
it.
inhabitants of Assyria, Egypt,
It's-
We're not gonna find anything when we get there.
Forest.
for the fruit of their
It's
doings are
uninhabitable.
that. Shepherd your people with your shepherd, flock their
But you have a lot
flocks to
more
you
of it.
which lives alone in the
You
fold.
got all of it.
I can build
Down
it.
there,
Isn't
it's
like
been
you
extended.
did, like when you
It's
came out,
no walls
for
left.
40
Yeah.
years, right? And then you will be amazing, and they will live
Almost,
just like a snake.
Absolutely
So
nothing.
you're gonna read all
Yeah.
that again.
Yeah.
So it's
After, as in the days when you came out into Egypt, I read that as
Hey, here
in,
it comes.
you're gonna do your penance like you did when you were
Yeah.
arrogant, and I made you stay there for 40 years.
Making,
But when you come out, you shall be the
belittling.
big guy on the block.
We're gonna build that, yeah.
And people are gonna come to you,
Now here's your tower.
and everything's gonna be
Build your
as
grand
good
palace
until
around
then.
That big desert with nothing in it.
Now, right here on line 16, where it says nations, what nations?
That's really,
So again, for you,
The nations
good enough,
will-
but perfect, yes, small.
but after
You're gonna be-
time,
Nations shall see.
Right, you're gonna be risen up, you're going to be raised up, there we go. Borders expanded, everything.
Deprived of all their power.
Yeah, after
This says
time.
nations will see and be ashamed, deprived of all their power.
So the Assyrians.
When it says the nations shall see and be ashamed of all their might, does that mean you're one of the nations?
The ones that
That's what I'm
get to
wondering,
feed on
is
the
it
good of
supposed
the
to be?
land.
You can't tell if we're included with that or it's thrown together.
That reads.
As the
it.
days when you came
I
out of the
think
land
no,
of Egypt,
because he's
show us-
using the second person. You know the land of Egypt and you show us
Yeah.
marvelous things.
Oh,
The
yeah,
nation,
see.
now we're not in second person,
You're-
anymore. Now we're in third person.
Yeah, the nations shall see and be ashamed of all their might. So it's their versus you, yeah. They shall lay their hands on their mouth, and their ears shall be deaf. They
And they'll
shall
be
lick
fear
them.
of you, so it's the.
That's a, word nation.
So we feel
Yeah,
one
people.
man.
Yes,
But-
is it
I think it's important, like that last
Right,
one.
right.
Like he's talking about me in the dark, I sin, he takes my side, but I have to, what was the word? The indignation of the Lord, and he talks about fear.
Whatever is left.
When you came out of the land of Egypt, like he's not gonna give it back easy, like this is going to be something.
When you found your mind.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but even after he raises everything, you gotta go out there and live, and your people and your flock have to, you know what I mean, graze on it for a while. After I snatch everything.
In the garden, like you did.
Yeah, exactly, and then you'll feed like days of old, as in the days
They're
of
still gonna
Egypt.
turn.
So like everything's destroyed, you gotta go out there and live on the land, and then maybe you'll have your kingdom back.
It's
That's why I read it at least.
Yes.
like fear as in
When they say you come from Assyria to Egypt, you're going from bondage back
When
to
you think
freedom.
of a prayer redemption.
So I think it starts out with that first sentence.
I really think this sounds right.
In that day.
Like,
All right, let's gather back together
There's no heat.
before we finish up. So thoughts? Is this restoration?
Yeah.
It's just sad, they're
No,
looking
yes.
at us and.
See, the haves still think it's bad news, but the have-nots?
Well, it's bad news for some people, just not bad news for you.
Okay.
It's only bad news for them.
Yeah.
But for us, who Mike has been talking to throughout this whole thing, it's good news, it's restoration.
Eventually.
Eventually, okay.
After we go from
So,
Assyria.
where did you find that? Because I don't think y'all found very much good news.
No, it's all.
Where, can you point to a verse?
You'll show us marvelous things. You'll be living in the forest in the midst of a garden land. Okay, like Garden of Eden. And then it talks about Bashan and Gilead. There's a balm in Gilead. And so they're talking about all these great things that happen. And then at the very end, they're going to stand in fear of you.
And it also says it's in the days when you came out of the land of Egypt, show us marvelous things.
Mhm.
So there's.
It should mirror it.
Do what?
It'll mirror the Egypt.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a deal that it talks about the nations when they say the bad stuff, and that's them. But we're shepherding our people, so we're finding marvelous things.
And at the beginning, it's all the people coming from Assyria to Egypt, Egypt to the river. They're coming to us, right? They will come to you from all of these places.
Because they've been exiled to Assyria.
Because they're
Right.
desolate and they're
Right.
inhabited, and because you're desolate and you've grown, you know, as in the days of old, now they will fear you because you've been through
Yeah,
awful
so
things and you were stronger.
you don't
Come on
want
the
to
other
cuff
side.
yourself, or do you want us to come cuff you?
Yeah. So you all, not like we're.
We're really just a half, glass half full, the group over here.
Maybe half empty.
Have them do it. Yeah. Have them do it.
See, we
It's
never
not
even had
a
a glass.
restoration to the perfect world that you would expect it to be described.
Yeah.
It still has like all the other ones crawling out of their caves and turning in
I
terror
love it.
towards God. I mean, they still turn towards God, but they do it
With
out of this
dread and
terror.
I love that.
It's
Right.
The dust like.
And they stand in fear of you.
That's really
You know,
what
the-
I want
So
you to
it's-
love
it's
me because
almost
you
like-
fear me.
Yeah, it's almost like, it's our turn now.
And this great land I'm giving you will be desolate.
Uh-huh. Maybe that might be a little bit of Micah's humanity coming out, not God's words, but
I think
Micah's
he's
words.
saying for their doings. He's not talking about the people that he just devastated. He's talking about the people that are coming from Egypt to the chosen. Their lands are desolate because of their doings, just like what happened to you. And now they're going to fear you. Like he's turning the tide. The bad people are now. And
Well, right,
And
right.
you were bad, but you're no longer bad because you've done your penance, right?
But you also don't think like, oh well, that's so. Come on, God. Well, they're not all bad. It's kind of like in what was it Sodom and Gomorrah where Aaron's like, if I
Five
can find,
people.
if I can find 100 people.
Right.
What about well, what about, that's my, oh really, I'm sure there's gotta be someone good in Assyria. Gotta be someone there. I was watching, do y'all watch The Crown on Netflix? You do? Okay.
It's on my
You
list.
have a
It's on my
healthy
list.
addiction to Netflix, my friend.
Yeah, I watch a lot of TV.
Oh, yeah.
But it's,
Queen of England.
yeah, it's about the Queen of England.
Elizabeth.
So, her husband, Philip, grew up in Nazi Germany. And so it was really interesting because there's a scene where he goes back as a child and is in a Nazi processional. And it makes me think that like, there's all these small children that, Hail Hitler sign and all these swastikas and there's, maybe there was a good person there. Philip was there. He turned out to be, Philip's still alive, right?
Yes, he is.
He's still alive, still a good person, I think. Not a Nazi. And so like maybe all of Germany wasn't bad. Maybe all of Assyria isn't bad.
I don't know where you're going with some of this, but after a time of rebalance, it does obviously change your perspective, so you step back
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
maybe you're tuned into something different, or you see something different, even if you're on kind of the bad side of it.
Yeah.
Things do look different.
With time.
Yeah. So that idea of balance, I think, forces us to think about perspective.
Anything else about?
I think that's a really good thing to say about this, because at this point in time, wouldn't Egypt and Assyria be the highest ranking on the block?
Still
And
coming.
then this is basically, like you were saying, a rebalance, like the tides will turn.
Yeah.
And you who are downtrodden will eventually be raising up, and those who are in power now will eventually be coming to you and groveling at your feet. And in this case, he's gonna make it, about God, but it's about like rebalance, like you said.
Yeah. And so I think it's a tension that you have to play of, there's going to be a reversal of the world, and that's a good thing. The weak will be lifted high, the mighty will be brought down. But the balancing so much that you don't create a world that's the exact same, just with different players playing different roles. And so I think that's a hard thing to carry. Well,
There's elements of this today, right? Everybody's talking about
Sure.
prosperity and wealth, and there's, a greater divide between the have-nots and the haves and the middle classes.
The middle class is
Growing
gone.
and gone, and
Yeah.
sooner or later, there's gonna be a reckoning
yeah.
for someone, for somebody.
And then, but and not to say which economic system is the best, but right now we're in a capitalist society, and some people are saying, well, we need to go straight to communism, without reckoning,
Those people should read the anthem.
what happens in Cuba, right? Cubans didn't have a great life under communism, and so just the idea is just saying, let's do the polar opposite.
Yeah.
Is not always the correct answer. And sometimes there needs to be a more creative solution instead of saying, well, let's do the opposite of it.
Things do hopefully physically move to the center.
Yeah.
That's what balance is.
Yeah.
So it's less of the extreme.
It's much easier to balance the closer you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like,
I don't know what that means, I just know that's true.
yeah, well, I've done it at like
Yeah.
leadership retreats where like you're like team building, and like if you're on like a giant like teeter-totter kind of thing, if two people on the very end, there's a lot more torque, and so it's harder to keep that balance.
Mhm.
But if people come together and stand in the middle, it's much easier to have that even field. And so,
Well, a little bit of movement doesn't make as big of a difference when everybody's sitting.
right.
Yeah.
But if you're on the edge, it's, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, cool. So we're gonna come back on January 10th. So I hope you all have a good Christmas and New Year's. But I want to leave you all. This next little section is titled "The Steadfast and Compassionate Love of God," and I think that's the message of Advent. And so I want to read you what Micah says, and this is in the Message translation, so it's a little more warm and fuzzy. So if you pray with me. Where is the God who can compare with you, wiping the slate clean of guilt, turning a blind eye, a deaf ear, to the past sins of your purged and precious people? You don't nurse your anger, and you don't stay angry long, for mercy is your specialty. That's what you love most. And compassion is on its way to us. You'll stamp out our wrongdoing. You'll sink our sins to the bottom of the ocean. You'll stay true to your word to Father Jacob and continue the compassion you showed grandfather Abraham. Everything you promised our ancestors from a long time ago. Amen.
Amen.
What translation is that?
Sink our
The
sins
Message.
to the bottom of the
The Message.
ocean.
Yeah.
All right.
Is that just what, is that a different Bible or?
So it is a
Don't we wish?
interpretation of a translation.
So nice,
Okay.
just like